Here are 6 reasons you gotta get your seaplane rating. I got mine 10 years ago, but I just did a 3-day refresher course, and it's got me all jazzed up again as to why I think everyone ought to do this. My recent float plane experience was with TacAero, which is a flight school here in Texas that just opened up a seaplane program, and they let me come experience it and film the whole thing. And so even if you just watch the footage that we took throughout this video, I think it'll get you excited for flying a float plane one day. Reason number 6 is that getting your seaplane rating will be the best 6 or so hours in your logbook. It took me 5.7 flight hours in my logbook to get my initial seaplane rating, and I have told people for a decade now that it is the best, most memorable 5.7 hours in my entire logbook. And now just getting off of the 3-day refresher course, like looking back on this footage, I think I let out more yeehaws like per flight hour than maybe any other flight I've ever taken.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow. That was a lot of fun. Oh, cool. Oh, this is really cool. Never thought I'd do this.
And so think about it this way. How much of the last 6 flight hours of yours do you really remember? I mean, obviously remember some of it, but not like every moment. The seaplane rating, on the other hand, is the total opposite. Like you will remember every single minute of it because it is that much fun. So I think getting your seaplane rating, even just for the fun of it, if like that's your only reason, just for the fun of it, that's an absolutely acceptable reason to do it. And plus there's no written test. And so you really can just train for 2 days and take your check ride on the 3rd day. That's not a gimmick. That's how I did it. It's totally doable. So it's really, really efficient and it's super fun. Reason number 5 is that it'll help grow your art of flying. So what do I mean by that? Well, let me give you a quick example. So at one point we were landing on this river with TacAero. It kind of went about like this. And there were several obstacles involved. First and foremost is the river ended right here because there's a big dam. There was a bridge right here, which we ended up actually taxiing under afterwards, which is another story. And that was so cool. But that was an obstacle. And then there were also power lines kind of coming across. Wow, I'm bad at drawing this, but there were power lines going across the river. There were also a lot of houses on different sides of the river, and there was kind of this mound here, kind of like a terrain obstacle, and the wind was coming from that direction. So already you can see, okay, we're not just landing on a paved 5,000 foot strip that's there, and it's like, well, there's the runway, that's where we're landing, and you don't have to think about it. Instead, you're presented with this, and you have to take it all into consideration and figure out where are we gonna land. And so charting your own runway is very unscripted. Like there's no right answer. You have to take all the variables like the ones on screen right now and say, what are you gonna do? Where are you gonna land? And to me, I just think that brings out like a new art to flying because there aren't very many like times in flying where you get to exercise creativity if you're a creative person. I like to think myself as a creative person. But in seaplane flying, when you're flying float planes, like the world is your oyster. The whole lake is a runway. And so you have to take all the different variables in play and figure out, okay, where do I want to make a landing? And I think that is one of the most satisfying parts of flying floats because it is unscripted and you get to let your brain just run wild. And so looking at this opportunity, there were also some more houses and hills kind of over here and things. So it didn't really make approaching the landing from this way very practical because there's a really big bridge and power lines and other things. And so we decided, okay, this is basically going to be your runway with enough room before you get to the dam at the end. And so what made it really fun is that you said, okay, well, if that's our runway, what is our approach going to look like? And so we decided to basically make your approach and your pattern coming around this hill, and then you start descending about right here, around the hill, down into the water, and with enough room to go around if you need to, minding the dam over here. And so flying this approach was just so much fun because it's just unlike anything you've ever done before. You're kind of flying near terrain and there's not a runway at the bottom. You come around the terrain, it's like, oh, there's the river, and you got to remind yourself, oh, that is the runway. So the first time we did it, I came in a little higher than I wanted to be and a little bit fast. We still made an okay landing, but it said, let's do that again. Turn around, and second time I was a little lower, a little bit slower. And it just felt like very artful flying. Not that I was like nailing it. I would love to have another chance at that approach, especially now watching the game film. There's things I would do differently. But instead of just flying an 8,000 foot runway, this is totally different. And you could land on the same lake and the same river 7 days in a row, and you might do it differently all 7 days because the wind's different, or maybe the water level is different, or maybe there's traffic, like boating traffic on this part of the lake or this part of the river. So you want to do things a little bit differently. The creative part of that is just so rewarding because because it's a new challenge and it's totally unscripted. Reason number 4 to get your seaplane rating is that it will make you better at energy management. And if you've watched this channel much, you know how much I stress that getting good at flying, particularly getting good at landing, comes down to having really good energy management. And the seaplane rating will give you lots of opportunities to grow in your energy management skills. So for example, when you're taking off, you end up getting up onto the step of the float, which is kind of like when a speedboat is speeding up and you start low in the water, but then you kind of get up on plane and then you have less drag in the water. The float plane goes through the same thing. It's on the step that you keep accelerating until liftoff. But there's some technique while you're on the step to try to decrease the drag. There's what's called a sweet spot on the float where you have the least amount of drag. And if you're two nose up, you'll increase the drag. You can feel it. You can kind of feel yourself slowing down. And if you're two nose low, you start porpoising, and that also creates some more drag and inefficiencies. So you aren't just sitting there waiting to accelerate, you're kind of testing the nose attitude, trying to find and feel that moment where you have the least amount of drag and you can keep accelerating.
Tell me when you've got the sweet spot nailed.
Okay. Not that. That's too bad back. I don't know, right there.
I agree. That's it. You got it. That's exactly it.
Cool.
Another great opportunity for energy management is during glassy water landings. This is when the water is perfectly still. And you would think that landing on perfectly still water would be really easy, but actually it gets a lot harder because the glassy water just becomes an infinite mirror. And I got to experience actual glassy water conditions in Alaska, and I'll be honest, it is humbling. I thought, come on, surely you can see the water, but really you cannot see the surface of the water. You look down and you see the sky. So the technique is to do as much of your approach as you can while you're over land, that way you have a solid reference point. And then once you cross over the water, you want to be in landing attitude with the nose up, and then put the airplane in about 150 foot per minute descent rate. It's kind of like a mini instrument approach, and you just wait to touch down. And so holding that altitude and that descent rate, that's fantastic practice in feeling the energy of the airplane. And while I'd say the seaplane rating isn't especially difficult, I have found myself telling people over the years, you know, the hardest part is actually docking. It has nothing to do with flying. It's actually just docking the airplane. And even that is a really good exercise in energy management because you basically just have to, you know, estimate the wind and estimate your own kind of momentum and things and point the airplane in the direction you think. And then eventually you just have to shut the engine off and get out on the float. It's really weird to still be moving, take your seatbelt off, shut the airplane off and get out of the airplane while it's still moving and catch yourself on the dock. If you're going too fast, that becomes a bit of a rodeo because you don't want to hurt anything or crash into anything or whatever. And if you go too slow, you're either gonna have to paddle the rest of the way, which depending on the wind might be difficult or not even possible. Or, which I've done this, is you just have to hop back in the airplane, start up, and go try it again for everyone watching. So even that is a really good lesson in energy management. And I think the better we can get at energy management, the more we can go from just knowing how to pilot an airplane to knowing how to fly. And those are two very, very different things. And I think the bridge is energy management. How good can you be at being a bird? So any opportunity I get to work on energy management, I will happily take it. And the seaplane rating is one of those things. Reason number 3 to get your seaplane rating is that it will make you a better pilot. Yes, even in a few short hours in your logbook, I firmly believe that you will get better because it forces you to learn and work on some new skills and get out of the mundane cross country. I mean, like if you think about, you could log 6 hours of cross country. Are you gonna learn much? Hopefully not. Hopefully nothing goes wrong and you're like, oh, I learned from that. But in your seaplane rating, the same 6 hours is like so rich. It's such rich training because you're gonna be forced to get out of your comfort zone and be in an environment that maybe you've never flown next to a hill, next to some bridges and done any bush flying like the one I was describing earlier. And that might be completely foreign to you. And I've done a decent amount of that, but even that is still stretching me, kind of getting out of my comfort zone and like, man, how can we work with the wind? How can we work with the terrain? It's so much different than I think what most of us are used to, and you will grow because of it. Reason number 2 is that it will make you fall in love with flying all over again. I'll put it this way. Flying TacAero's amphibious Top Cub was maybe the truest sense of freedom I have ever felt. And because it can land on both land and water, you can literally go just about anywhere. I mean, you can go splash around on rivers and lakes, you can beach it next to boats and be a boat for a while, and then at the end of all that, you can just fly home to your paved airport for lunch or for dinner and just push the airplane back into your hangar just like a land plane. So it makes it super approachable and really easy. And the best part is that as you're flying along, you start to realize the possibilities are endless. You start entertaining the thought of like, oh, that's a cool lake or river or a cool cove. Oh yeah, why don't we just go land there real quick? Why don't we just go splash down? And then once you're there, like, hey, should we just shut the engine off and sail for a minute or just kind of enjoy the water or jump in the water? It's like, yeah, you can do it, no problem. You can absolutely do that. So if you're watching this video while sitting at a desk or sitting on the couch or something and you're thinking, man, I want to go do something. What should I do? What should I work towards? Or so what can I put on my bucket list? Just consider this video your sign. This is something you should absolutely do. And my instructor, Wes, who I absolutely loved, man, he had such a heart for teaching and such a calm demeanor, but he's got almost 30,000 hours. Like, this guy knows what he's doing. He put it really eloquently. Here's what he had to say.
Don't wait. Take the time, go experience something new. For us, we can provide that seaplane experience. But if it's flying a glider, if it's hiking a tall mountain, I mean, whatever it is, don't wait. Go do it.
And the number one reason to go get your seaplane rating is that your return on investment is really, really high. Think about it this way. The discrepancy, the disparity between input and output here is crazy. You are getting a ton out of it. You're getting fun experience. You're gonna talk to people about the rest of your life. You're getting memories that last a lifetime. You're having a blast. You're getting good aviation experience and more. That's all the output. But the input in terms of like cost, commitment, timeline, difficulty, all those are relatively low in the scheme of aviation. So to me, that discrepancy is just a massive return on investment, and it just makes it a total no-brainer. And so if you're ready to jump in and get your seaplane rating, or you're just interested in learning more, in the video on the screen, I got to sit down and interview the guys at TacAero and ask them more about their seaplane rating and help you understand what to expect and how much fun you're going to have. And that video is on the screen now. I'll see you there.